welcome to Talking Smack Intellectually, the podcast that dives deep into thought-provoking discussions. I'm the captain of good vibes today, your host, the upsetter, always upsetting the status quo. And as we continue to celebrate Women's History Month, in this latest episode, we are joined by the multi-talented Emmy Award nominee actress and writer, Diarra Kilpatrick. We are so thrilled to have her on the show. Had a great time in the studio with her. Also want to send a special shout out to BET for making this interview a thing, and also always, supporting dynamic talent and amazing women like Diarra. Tomorrow, let's be sure to check out Diarra from Detroit, which is her latest TV series. It will be airing on BET Plus. I'm looking forward to this. We got a chance to actually see a clip of it at the Emmy Awards this year. And I have to say, we're up for a little treat. I'm looking forward to it. I've seen the sexy Morris Chestnut in there, the beautiful Felicia Rashad. The list goes on and on. So let's go ahead and grab our wine glasses to get ready to celebrate this multi-talented powerhouse, Diarra Kilpatrick. And I just want to jump right into the project that you're working on, or that's slated to come out March 21st. Diarra from Detroit. It's a highly anticipated project, and it seems to be close to your heart considering you named it after yourself. Can you tell us how much of your personal experience in living in Detroit shaped the narrative and characters for this particular project?
Yeah, well, the show is 100% inspired by Detroit, inspired by some ripped from the headlines, some personal relationships, friends and family, stories I've heard and places I've been. So it is 100% born of my experiences there.
Mm-hmm.
But I had a really good time crafting the story. It is a story. Yeah. I was at Clark. We did a screening there, and one of the girls came up to me afterwards and was like, I just saw on your Instagram, you're not married to that man from the dinner. I was like, no, baby, I'm not. So there's definitely, it's fiction,
Mm-hmm.
but there's so much in it that's true.
Mm-hmm.
Deep, personally true. And in a lot of ways, I say that the story is emotionally true because I wrote from a place of how I was feeling, even though the circumstances weren't lining up with what was happening in my life.
Sure. And then securing the production deal with BET, that wasn't an easy feat. And congratulations. Can you walk us through your journey towards the production deal and what that entails?
Yeah, well, it was actually not so bad. As far as television, people call it development hell. You can be in development hell for 5 years or something on a project. This actually moved relatively quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say, part of the reason for that was that I had 3 failed pilots before that.
Mm-hmm.
So I had developed an FX. I had made a pilot at Amazon that was also set in Detroit. That didn't go. And then I had developed at Showtime a half-hour pilot. And so I learned a lot. I use failure for lack of a better word, because there should be a word in the English language that means like it didn't go the way that I had hoped, but I won because I learned.
Right.
What is that word? I don't know. But it was like setting up a future win. I would
Mm-hmm.
say that. I learned about my voice as a writer.
Mm-hmm.
I learned when to say absolutely not. That dishonors what I'm trying to say and do. I learned what my strengths were and what I really wanted to say and what I really thought I was good at.
Mm-hmm.
So once we got past all that, I felt like we got, it was like 6 years of developing. I think for 5 years, I had a pilot that I was supposed to star in that was in first position.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got past that, and Kenya Barris, who has an ownership stake in BET Studios, and said, I'm bringing some writers over to develop exclusively for them. I knew what idea I had. I felt really ready. I felt more confident in myself and in
Mm-hmm.
my voice. And it moved sort of quickly.
Nice. This particular project, you're working with a diverse team of creatives, some icons, Morris Chestnut, John Sally, the beautiful Felicia Rashad. How do you navigate in various creative inputs and making sure that the end result is exactly what your vision was?
Yeah, I think so. It's twofold. The things that are really important to you, you hold on to.
Mm-hmm.
You really do have to protect. NKT Carol, who runs All American and what's her other show, Found. She's
Mm-hmm.
3 shows in the air. I don't understand. how or when she sleeps. But I sat down with her right before the room started, and she told me, like, this is your vision. Make sure that it is your show and your vision. And she was really clear with me about that. And it really did give me permission to stand up for myself when I had to.
Mm-hmm.
Other thing about it is this is a collaborative process. You know? So you protect your vision, but at the same time, when you do hire people who like Morris Chestnut and Alicia Rashad and these really wonderful actors who you'll discover in the course of our episodes, you know, John Chafin, Claudia Logan, Dominique Perry, who's just hysterical and beautiful, Brian Terrell Clark, who is just, you know, he's about to be the queer leading man of the future. Mm-hmm. And so when you create these characters, you know, they do become a collaboration with them. Like when you have people who are that genius and that beautiful, you do let them inspire you, you know? And so when Morris came on, there definitely was a scramble. I rewrote 5 and 6 after 4, 5, and 6 after he was cast. So, you know, it is a collaboration. It isn't, and sometimes, a lot of times, it's better than you thought it would. You have great writers, Miles Orion Feldsott, who is an EP, and who, I mean, goodness, I could not have done this without him. He's just excellent in every facet of production. Esther Lou Withers, who is just a gem in the room. They come in and they have great pitches and great ideas that you never would have come up with by yourself, and it becomes ours,
right?
You know, so it is a dance of going, oh no, this, no matter what, we're keeping this gem of an idea that I had. I'll protect that to the death, and then relaxing and going, oh, this is way better than I thought, you know. So it's just a dance.
And talk a little bit about your beginnings in the entertainment field, specifically film. How did you get started?
Well, you know, I came to LA and I thought that there would be an announcement over the PA, like, Diarra Kilpatrick has arrived. Somebody get her a TV show and a movie and a 3-picture deal. And it didn't happen. You know, I did a lot of theater. I did a lot of short films. I would get these little parts on The Game or Private Practice or, you know, little things. And then it really changed for me. I decided to write a show called American Coco and made it myself. Actually produced it with Miles, who also works on this show. And I sent it to everybody I knew. And one of those people happened to be Viola Davis, because I had done a play with her husband when I first got to LA. And Viola and Julius called and they said, we loved it. How can we help? And we went to ABC and remade the first season and made the second season for them, and ABC Digital. And that was really kind of my introduction to the business, to the writing, performing aspect of things. And a lot of things kind of changed and accelerated at that point. And then I just kept marching in that direction. Like I was saying before, for like 5 or 6 years, trying to take it to the next level. And then finally have had this opportunity. And then throughout the time, I've also been fortunate enough to have some great acting gigs in between, and some great writing gigs, and just village building along the way.
And your work seems to be consistently pushing true representation and authenticity, especially concerning Black Americans and their experiences. So how do you balance these stories truthfully without losing the essence of entertainment and also engaging a broader audience?
Yeah, I really believe that art is the way that we connect. You know, that is the way we cross cultural boundaries. That is the way we're flies on the wall inside of other cultures. And as a fan, I love that. Some of my favorite movies growing up, you know, Joy Luck Club and a lot of Woody Allen stuff, like a lot of stuff that is really culturally specific. And so I try to keep that in mind. And I don't think they try to water down the culture to make it accessible. I think the best thing to do is to stick to the specificity of that culture. So I try to do that. And I don't worry as much about making things too stereotypical or whatever, because I put as much of me in these characters as I can. As much as I can of the people who I love, to try to make them feel incredibly well-rounded. We can't hide from the fact that it's Detroit. There's definitely dudes in Detroit. There's people with guns in Detroit. Part of it. But I think what makes it different is these characters are like onions, and you can get to the very center of them and not just the stereotype.
Right.
But I did make this show really intentionally for everybody. And I want everybody to go inside a Black home and inside a Black friend group and, get the specifics of it. I didn't try to water it down.
Right. And how was the Emmy experience for you?
It was good. I mean, listen, it's all like everybody knows if you are doing this for the awards or whatever, you're going to be in trouble because there's so much hard work that leads to a moment like that. But I'm human, so I'm like, it always feels nice to be affirmed when you're out here thugging it out for years. An applause is always nice. So that was a beautiful experience.
And we all have individuals that really inspire and motivate us with growing up. Who inspired you? Who were your motivators when you were younger and looking to become who you are today?
My mother, when we went to have the premiere in Detroit, and when I got up on the stage, I was so overcome with emotion, I almost couldn't speak. And I remember two things. I remember my mother saying to me when I was really little, she was like, I had a dream and you're going to be talking to a lot of people.
Wow.
I remember her saying that you're going to be speaking to a lot of people. I was like, what was I doing? What was I saying? She was like, I don't know. I just know you were affecting a lot of people. That memory came back to me and I was like, oh, this is the moment that she had dreamed of. And the other moment was I was in high school and I had won a competition for reciting a poem and she was in this fur coat, which was ridiculous. I'm like, why are you in this fur coat? And she's cheering so loudly, right? She's cheering like I just won 6 Oscars. Wow. And at the time, I remember being really embarrassed. And one of my friends was telling me, like, your mother was out there screaming and hollering, like, it was so extra. And, she passed in 2019.
I'm sorry to hear that.
I stood up on that stage. I was like, oh, that's why she was cheering that loudly, because that memory is burned in my brain. So she'll always be cheering for,
right.
I always remember her cheering for me. And I think a lot of what I do is inspired by my mother and thinking about my mother and my grandmother, like rooting me on and being able to reflect back what I always thought was their beauty and grace. As they were just these like everyday Black women, a teacher and a grandma, but I am inspired by telling stories that puts women like them right at the very center of it. And I just know that they're cheering me on.
What a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that. And as we're celebrating Women's History Month and celebrating women like yourself, beyond your work and public persona, what do you hope your legacy will be? How do you want to be remembered?
Love. When I have a son, it's one of the things that makes grieving my mother easier is I'm like, people say grief. I just heard Regina King say grief is love and no place to go. And I try to put all the love that, I have from my mom that I do have, I can funnel it directly into my son, that it definitely has a place to go so that I'm not stuck with that feeling. So love, I hope that people who have been loved by me are like, oh yeah, like that's like a warm bath. Like and the other thing is that I would like to represent my people. I think, there's a term griot, in West African culture, they were the keepers of the history of a people. And it was an oral tradition. And now we've moved on from that. It's not just, gather around, I'm going to tell you a story, but that is kind of the same idea is I want to be the storyteller. I want to be a storyteller, and I want people to see themselves, and I want people to also come not see themselves. So they have greater empathy for the people that are in the show, representing the show. So yeah, I think I just feel like that urban griot, and that I hope that is indeed part of my legacy.
Nice. And success sometimes can be the double-edged sword, especially in creative industries like entertainment. So How do you define success for yourself and happiness? You know, these definitions kind of evolve over time, but what does success and happiness mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's piece by piece, right? So for me, because you don't want to keep moving that barometer so that you never reach it. That's the hard part of like, I'll be happy when I make a show. And then you're like, no, I'll be happy when I make a second season. No, I felt really successful when I got this done. There was one point where I was just like, I'm just going to get to the end. I'm just going to get this show made. And I'm going to put horse blinders on until then. And so when that happened, I did feel really proud of myself and I felt really successful. No matter what the response was going to be, I just felt really good that I had something to say and I said it and I did it. Now it really becomes about being, being true to the muses, to be honest. Like, I just try to be obedient to what wants to come through. Writing is hard. And I find the ideas that actually make it from in my head out onto the page are the aggressive ideas, the ones that keep bothering me until I write them. And so for me, I think success is just being obedient to those ideas.
As the show's gearing up to make its mark, what do you have next on your plate? Are there any projects or people that you're gearing up to work with that you can share, or anyone that you want to work with in the near future?
Ooh, there's a lot of people that I want to work with, but right now we're focusing on, I've written a feature. We're working on producing that.
Oh, nice.
It's a romantic comedy. It's a reparations romantic comedy. So it's another sort of genre bending movie. But as far as people that I want to collaborate with, man, you name it. I really enjoyed working with Jordan on Laughed OG, Jordan Peele, and I hope that we get to work. Yeah.
Nice collaboration. And when you're not immersed with all of the creative work that you're doing, what are some of your passions and hobbies, or that fans actually might be surprised to learn about you?
Yeah. You know what's funny? I recently decided that my hobby was self-care. I was like, my girlfriends are like, we're all getting hobbies, and they're all playing tennis and doing all this shit that requires a bunch of time and sweat. No, my hobbies are spas, massages, naps, baths. I really like to relax when I can. I like to spend time with my son. I have a 3-year-old who is a three-nager terrorist right now, very demanding. And I like to chill, man. I like to go for hikes. I'm very woo-woo. Give me a good meditation retreat, a good, I could spend all day going to YouTube University, listen to spiritual talks Sunday. That's my thing. I'm trying to zen out.
Love it. Love it. We all need to put self-care at the forefront. I think we tend to let that slide and not put that as a priority. So that's great that is something that you put at the forefront. And you touched a little bit on some of the challenges with this particular project, but in general, with working in the entertainment industry, one being a woman and a writer and also an actress, how do you navigate those challenges? And what are some of if you can share like a challenge that you had to overcome independent to what you had shared?
Ooh, this was a challenging process for a lot of reasons. I think one of the ways that I overcame it was I honestly just thought about my little girl. And I just think about like 13, 14-year-old Diarra, and I'm like, I just have to be obedient to what she wanted. The horse blinders are so real. Like, sometimes you just have to set a goal and get to the end. It's like, how do you get from here to there? Don't stop walking. You literally have to wake up and just keep marching forward in the direction of your dreams. That's one thing. There was that. And then, like, if I had to get really specific, I remember, and this happened a little bit recently, but I remember when I was first starting, I had a manager, and I would say, I want to go out for this, or I want to go out for that. And he would be like, and he said to me, oh, I can't send you out for that stuff. You're not, I don't think he just said like, you're not pretty, but that was basically what he was saying. He was going like, you're not that type. You're not, this is for pretty, kind of something like that. And I remember like, when you feel that like gut punch of like, excuse me, sir, I feel pretty. Like, I'm out in the street. Like, I feel like I get complimented or whatever. And I remember taking that moment of being like, okay, and he was a white man. And I remember feeling like, okay, so this is how he sees me, as like someone who is unattractive, whatever. And that I remember thinking everybody that you meet is a mirror in some way. And so I remember thinking, okay, it's not about him.
Right.
I fired him.
Right.
Okay, you agree. It's like, do you agree that you shouldn't go out for anything if it says pretty or beautiful in the description? And I was like, I don't agree. So then I was like, okay, so maybe this is a reflection of something that I feel about myself. So then I started to work on how I felt about myself instead of dealing with him and cussing him out and getting upset with him. I was like, okay, what part of myself does he represent?
Right.
That's when I went deep into, I call her white grandma. What is her name? Now her name just jumps out of my brain. Oh, Louise Hay. She's deceased now, but she has this book called You Can Heal Your Life and all that kind of stuff. And she's the affirmation queen. She's on YouTube now, and she has 101 affirmation power thoughts. And just playing it in the background, just getting in, almost brainwashing yourself until it's like, no, I believe I'm beautiful. I believe I'm attractive. And I just kind of had to rewire my brain.
And on that notion, you mentioned the younger Diarra. What would you tell her, knowing what you know now? What would you tell her? And then how do you think you best evolve?
I think I waited for a long time to be affirmed and to be picked. And I think I would just say, just go for it from the jump. Like, you have voice, you have talent, like, just go for it. And I would say, you're all right. Like, you're pretty good. You're all right just the way that you are. So, yeah.
And my final question, Diarra from Detroit is hitting airwaves, March 21st. What would you like your fans to take away from that project? What would be the most meaningful aspect of the project?
Well, go to Detroit. Go to Detroit, go see the Motown Museum, take the Detroit tour, get the full experience. And the other thing is, we really made it an escapist ride. I think I am an activist in my core. So there's some social commentary in there for sure about the Black community, about the healing that needs to happen, the trauma that sometimes needs to be healed inside all of us, inside the Black community, about relationships. But at the end of the day, it's really an escapist romp. It's a ride. I want you to get invested in these characters and the story. I want you to curl up with your glass of wine at the end of the night and have a good time. Try to figure it out. Because, folks get really invested into the true crime.
Right.
I want you to try to figure out what's going on, call your friends, go to brunch and talk about it. Just gather around. Like I said, gather around for a good story.